Hello everyone, welcome to the Lang Focus channel. My name is Paul. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about some famous people who can speak a foreign language. When we think of famous people or iconic people, the image in mind that we have of them is usually just a very thin slice of who they are. We know the skills and the talents that they choose to share with the public, but there are always other things about them that we don't know and that most of us would find surprising. A lot of us would be surprised to know that one of the famous celebrities that we look up to can speak a foreign language. Now, there are some famous celebrities who grew up speaking foreign languages. For example, Natalie Portman was born in Jerusalem and she is fluent in Hebrew.
כן, ולא, עם טעויות אבל, כן, אם אני לא מבינה אני אשאל.
And Leonardo Dicaprio speaks German because his family on his mother's side is from Germany.
Meine Oma ist von einer kleinen Stadt, 2 Stunden weg von Düsseldorf.
But there are also lots of famous people who have learned foreign languages as teens or adults. One example is Will Smith, who speaks Spanish. Let's have a look.
La película basada 1000 años en el futuro y tengo miedo porque necesito practicar más mi español.
Okay, so maybe Will Smith doesn't seem completely fluent in Spanish, but that's all right. He seems to have the basics down. He has a working knowledge of Spanish. He is on record as saying that he studies Spanish in order to do interviews for his fans around the world who speak Spanish. I think the lesson we can take from Will Smith is that having a very specific functional goal in mind for the language, having a real functional reason to use the language, is a great external motivator to study it. Maybe he doesn't have a personal cultural interest in studying Spanish, but that professional goal of giving interviews in Spanish motivates him to study. And he's constantly improving, so I think it's working. Another person is Bradley Cooper, who is fluent in French. Let's take a look.
Mais c'est bien pour mes amis parce qu'il fait beaucoup de blagues maintenant. Hein.
Qu'est-ce qu'ils disent, par exemple?
Oh, je sais pas, mais partout, hein, c'était nul là. C'était vraiment. Je veux pas penser de ça parce que c'était hyper méchant.
Now, Bradley Cooper clearly speaks French very well. He often gives interviews in the French press, the French media. He says that he studied abroad in France when he was a teenager. He lived there for 6 months and was basically immersed in the French language. So I think the lesson that we can take from Bradley Cooper is that living in the country where that language is spoken, living amongst people who speak it with you every day, being immersed, is one of the best ways that you can solidify your language skills. Another person is Gwyneth Paltrow, who speaks fluent Spanish. Let's take a look.
Yo estaba estudiando español en el colegio en Nueva York y la profesora nos han dicho, bueno, hay una oportunidad a ir a España, a estudiar ahí.
Gwyneth Paltrow says that she went to Mexico when she was a teenager and she fell in love with the country and she started to study the language, and that she's been back there on a regular basis ever since then, and even to this day she still speaks Spanish regularly, and she says she even speaks Spanish to her kids sometimes. So I think what we can learn from her is that really falling in love with a culture and making that culture a part of your life and a part of who you are is a great way to also get motivated to study that language and make the language a part of yourself and your life. It's not really difficult to do that if you love the culture. You don't even need to push yourself because you'll always just enjoy studying that language and enjoy getting to know the culture even more than you currently do. Now, the next person is not a movie star, not a Hollywood star, but she's still very famous and you still know who she is. And that's J.K. Rowling, who is the author of the Harry Potter series, of course. And she is filthy fucking rich. J.K. Rowling can speak French. Let's have a look.
Je ne peux pas dire que je pense la mériter véritablement, mais la Légion d'honneur a pour moi une signification toute particulière et très personnelle, comme je vous l'expliquerai dans un instant.
J.K. Rowling majored in French in university, and part of her program was to spend a year abroad in Paris studying the language. And she was also a French teacher in the UK for a while before she became filthy fucking rich. So similar to Bradley Cooper, I think the lesson that we can learn from J.K. Rowling is that immersion in the country, well, immersion amongst the language that you want to learn, is one of the best ways to solidify your skills and to become good at that language. Another lesson that we can learn from her is that learning a foreign language will make you filthy fucking rich. Well, maybe not, but hey, I can dream, right?
No!
And this last person is also not a Hollywood star, but this person is huge, and it is Mark Zuckerberg. Of course, we all know Mark Zuckerberg as the founder of Facebook, and he made big headlines last year by speaking at a conference in China in Mandarin. He actually did an interview with an interviewer in Mandarin for about 30 minutes. Let's take a look.
我一直想，应该有产品联系整个世界，但是我觉得其他公司做这个。
Okay, so it doesn't seem like Mark is completely fluent in Mandarin, but he seems to have the basics down. He's got a working knowledge of the language. He seems to be able to answer questions and express himself. So it is what it is. He'll continue to improve, I'm sure. I don't know how he studied or studies the language, but his reasons for studying the language are interesting, and those are lessons in and of themselves. His first reason for studying the language is that his wife is of Chinese descent, and he wants to communicate with her family. So that shows us that having a specific group of people that you really want to communicate with in that language, that's a great motivator to push you to learn the language. His second reason for learning the language is that China is a great country, a great culture, and a great civilization, and he wants to learn more about it. I think when he says that, that's a veiled way of saying that he wants to get Facebook into China because it's such an important place. But if we take what he says at face value, then of course wanting to know more about an important culture is a great motivation. But if his main point is to get Facebook into China, then that too, that kind of goal, having an important business goal like that, that is also a powerful external motivator to get you studying a language. His third reason for studying Mandarin is that he enjoys challenges and he thinks Mandarin is a challenging language. Now, think about that attitude for a second. That's really an attitude of success. If you think that challenge is bad, if you think that anything difficult or anything that makes you uncomfortable is bad, then you're going to shy away from learning a language because it's sometimes necessary to break out of your comfort zone to learn a language. But if you embrace that, if you see that as getting yourself fired up or as making yourself more powerful by fighting through some kind of challenge or difficulty, then that's just an attitude that can propel you forward rather than making you shy away from learning a language. None of these people are known mainly for their language skills, right? They're all known mainly for some other talent or skill or creation that they've contributed to the world. And they're all really quite busy focusing on those things. But the fact that they can become good at a foreign language even though they're focused on this other central goal, that shows you that you can do it too. So take them as examples, people we can learn from, people we can be inspired by and motivated by. A lot of people like to watch famous people and just observe their lives, but don't just watch them as observers. I want you to actually learn something from them and emulate the good qualities of those people. All right, this is Paul from Lang Focus. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a nice night. Talk to you later. In French has been the easiest language that I have personally studied. I used to think it was Indonesian because Indonesian is really simple. In the future, beyond that, you can see the next goal in front of you, which is to start learning Spanish or whatever your language of interest is. But just think of it like that, like you're not discarding those goals or discarding those missions. You are kind of putting them off into the future and you'll get to them later, but your primary mission right now is this one, which you need to accomplish first before you can get to that future mission.